And I would like to remind everyone that today's proceedings are being recorded, both from a video and audio standpoint. If when you speak, you do not wish to be viewed on the video camera, please tell the person who brings the microphone to you. Before we start today's proceedings, I would ask that you join me in a moment of silence for those victims of the Pulse tragedy, this tragedy of hate that occurred in our community, and pray for their families and all those that have been affected by this terrible tragedy. Thank you. A few notes before we begin today's proceedings and before we introduce our administrator to conduct today's proceedings. The purpose of today's town hall meetings are for public input, really to address the transparency desires of both the fund and the City of Orlando through this process. You must know that no decisions will be made today. The One Orlando Fund Board is here in attendance today to listen to all of the comments that will be made today by everyone from the public in regards to this tragedy, in regards to the protocol, and in regards to the distribution of the One Orlando funds. I would ask that the One Orlando Fund Board please stand and be recognized. Thank you. The One Orlando Fund Board today is here to listen. They will observe, they will take notes, and after today's two town hall meetings, the board will meet to consider the input that is made during these town hall meetings, as well as the other input that we have received over the course of the last several weeks since the protocol has been distributed. And we intend to make our final decisions for the final protocol and for the application process for the funds by the middle of August. We are very fortunate to have the services on a pro bono basis of Mr. Ken Feinberg and his staff as the administrator of the One Orlando Fund. Mr. Feinberg, unfortunately, has a vast amount of experience in this area, having been involved in the 9/11 Fund, the BP Oil Spill Fund, the Aurora Fund, and the One Fund Boston, just to name a few. Mr. Feinberg, thank you for your service of you and your staff to this process, to the City of Orlando, and to the victims of the One Pulse tragedy. At this time, it's my honor to introduce Maya Fernandez, the Executive Director of the National Compassion Fund. The National Compassion Fund has provided a great partnership to the One Orlando Fund during this period of time. They've been of great counsel, they've been a great partner, and they also have been a source of additional fundraising for the victims of this tragedy. Ms. Fernandez?
Buenas tardes, good afternoon. Mi nombre es María Cristina Fernández y soy la directora del Centro Nacional para las Víctimas. I'm Mai Fernandez. I am the executive director of the National Center for Victims of Crime. Nosotros somos una de las organizaciones que se han juntado para ayudar a las víctimas del Pulse Shooting. Y estamos aquí para oír a ustedes y a ver cómo podemos ayudar. We're one of the organizations that has come together to help the victims and the families of the Pulse shooting. We're here to listen and to find out how we can help. Absolutamente todos los fondos donados irán a las personas que estuvieron en el Pulse shooting o las familias. Absolutely, all the funds will go to the victims that were there that night or their families. Estamos aquí para escuchar y para oír las preguntas y las preocupaciones que ustedes tienen. We're here to listen and to hear the things that are bothering you and the things that you want to hear. Esperemos que los fondos serán dados a las familias y las víctimas en las próximas semanas. En este momento quiero introducir a Ken Feinberg, que es el administrador de este fondo. I'm here also to introduce Ken Feinberg, who will be the administrator of this fund. Él ha hecho esto en otros lugares como Aurora, Colorado, en Boston, Massachusetts y en Connecticut. En este momento te introduzco a Ken Feinberg.
I want to thank Alex, and I want to thank Mai. I am here today with my colleague, Ms. Camille Byros. We have done too many of these compensation funds, too many. We would gladly not be here today, gladly. Tragedy brings us again, this time to Orlando. Now, a few points I want to make at the outset, because most of the time today is to listen to what you want to recommend to me and to the board and to Camille. First, you heard my 100% of the money that is available to be distributed will be distributed to the victims and their families. All of it. 2, everybody involved in this program is working pro bono, free. There is zero overhead cost with this program. Everybody is donating their time. 3, you know that money is a very poor substitute for loss, for death, for injury. A check is hardly appropriate in light of the loss that so many have suffered. We are talking about money and a protocol because under the American system, we have this money to distribute, but it is a very poor substitute for what you have all suffered in the past few months. Also, please remember, there is currently about $23 million to be distributed. So far. We still have a month or so to go. Do not believe for a minute that that money is adequate. It is not. When you look at the list of those who died, the number of those physically injured, the number of those who suffered mental injury, held as hostages in the nightclub, $23 million does not go very far. 50 million wouldn't go very far. 100 million wouldn't go very far. Don't believe that there is an unlimited amount of money to be distributed. We have to be extremely careful in how this money is to be distributed. It is not that much in light of the tragedy. Now, a few points about the protocol. It's available to everybody. It has been available for weeks. It is available today in the back of the hall. If you don't have a copy, make sure you receive a copy. Read it carefully. It is only a draft. It is not etched in stone. We can and will make changes as warranted. It is an attempt to get all of you, the public, those interested, victims, their families, to focus on what we are thinking about doing. It builds on some of the other funds that we have worked on, Camille and I, over the years. The 9/11 Fund, the Boston Marathon Bombing Fund, Aurora, Colorado Fund, Sandy Hook Elementary School Fund, the Virginia Tech Shootings Fund. Various programs funded at various levels have been designed and administered like this program to try and come up with a transparent method so everybody knows here is how we will distribute this money on a very timely basis. So remember, what you're holding in your hand is a draft that we built on previous programs designed to come up with a speedy, efficient way, quick, to distribute funds. It may be revised after we hear today 2 town hall meetings, after we read all of the input from people who have emailed us or dropped off letters or made suggestions. We may change the protocol. Once we change it, roughly in the next couple of weeks, it's final. It is final, and it will be the protocol we use to process claims and distribute money. I would think all money should be distributed by the end of September. By the end of September, with some important caveats that I will explain in a minute. Now, under this protocol, we have to decide who is eligible to file a claim. The families of those who died are eligible. Those who were physically injured and hospitalized are eligible. Those who were physically injured raced to the emergency room of hospitals and were sent home are eligible. Those who were trapped in the nightclub, hostage, hiding, and managed through the grace of God to get out without a physical injury, they are eligible. We cannot, with the limited amount of money in the draft protocol, go beyond those categories of eligibility. 4 categories: death, physical injury, hospitalization, physical injury, emergency treatment, hostage in the building. Those are the only groups that will be eligible to file a claim. Now, we have heard, what about people who were across the street? What about businesses that had to close their doors for weeks or more? Employees who lost wages. Why aren't they eligible in the draft protocol? Not enough money. Not enough money. You have to make a distribution in which victims receive an amount of money that is meaningful. You start broadening the definition of eligibility, and you're spreading the money very, very thin. So we have to make some judgment calls. Now, how much money will each claimant receive who's eligible? We don't know yet. We don't know yet. The money is still coming in. The money is still arriving. 23 million, maybe 24 million or 25 million. We don't know yet. We shall see. But it will be a meaningful amount of money in a financial sense. We will make a final decision on how much money in the next few weeks, after we have a better handle on who's eligible, how many there are, how much money we have, and then we will make a distribution. Now, in the past, we have made some important decisions about the money, besides eligibility. One, the most money goes to the individual families who lost loved ones that night. Death is a priority. Second, for the physically injured, we don't want medical records. We don't want all sorts of medical information about the nature of the injury. What we want to know, how long were you in the hospital as a result of the shootings? Hospitalization is a pretty good test of seriousness of injury. The longer you were in the hospital in the draft protocol, the more money you receive. If you were in the hospital for more than 4 weeks, if you're still in the hospital, more money than the person who was in the hospital 1 day, 3 days, 1 week, 2 weeks. A gradual hierarchy, grouping. More than a month, X dollars in the hospital. 3 weeks, Y dollars. 2 weeks, Z dollars. Physically injured, outpatient treatment, emergency, and sent home. Some money. Some money, we'll see how much. Even those who weren't hospitalized under the draft protocol receive compensation. And if you weren't physically injured, but you were in the nightclub hiding, you will receive compensation. Now, listen carefully in the protocol. How do we know you were in the nightclub that night hiding? What proof is there? The police know. The police have comprehensive records. Law enforcement know who was in that nightclub. That's the proof. We want to know from the police. We interviewed Joe, Mary, whatever. They were in the nightclub. Now, a few mechanical points, and the expert, Camille Byros, is right here. Everybody who is eligible must file a claim. We're not going to look for you as much as, we'll probably will look for you, but much more important, beginning in the next couple of weeks, file a claim. How do you file a claim? Well, the claims will be available, but go to oneorlando.org, oneorlando.org, go to the National Compassion Fund.org, There's the claim form. Fill it out, send it in. Do you need a lawyer? If you want a lawyer, I'm a lawyer. If you want a lawyer, that's fine. But if you don't want a lawyer, fill it out yourself. And if you have questions about the claim, if you're not sure about something, email oneorlando@ncvc.org. oneorlando@ncvc.org. Or here's a phone number. Here is a phone number you can call to answer your questions. 855-484-2846. 855-484-2846. The claim and the information in English or Spanish. Take your pick. We should begin receiving claims. Remember, this is only a draft protocol. Once we finalize the protocol, we should begin welcoming claims the middle of this month, a couple of weeks. And we will continue to receive claims for about a month, till the end of September, roughly, when the program, the filing, will end. And we're processing the claims and distributing the funds. Now, anybody who files a claim and who's eligible, who wants to meet me or Camille or my privately, confidential, separate in a room, no one present, fine. We will do that in person here in Orlando, or if convenient, we will do it by telephone. It is not required. Most people don't want a private meeting. But if you do, with your claim, we will grant the right to be heard privately. But remember this. If you meet anybody, any one of us, if you meet us privately, you might want to explain something about your claim. But we will not change the protocol. Once the protocol is final, no private meeting will result in a change of the wording or the rules of the protocol. You may want to bring something to our attention about your own personal submission. Fine. Fine. But it will not, the meeting will not serve to change it. Now, when it comes time to distribute the money, we prefer to distribute it electronically, a wire transfer from One Orlando Fund to your bank. But if the claimant would rather get the check, we will hand deliver the check, no mail. We will hand deliver it by courier, a hand delivery. Electronic is preferable. We'll help you with this. But hand delivery is also permitted. Now, a very, very important point I want to make about the protocol, any compensation program. For those who lost loved ones, Only one person can file the claim with us. It is the person who has been designated by an Orlando court to be the personal representative of the loved one. We will not accept multiple filings by different family members. One person files the claim for the lost loved one. And that person is the person who, right around the corner from here, in the Orlando court, the probate court, that person has been designated as the person to handle the estate of the lost loved one. If the lost loved one, if the mother files a claim, and the father files a claim, and the brother files the claim, we will not accept the claim. We will say to the mother, the father, and the brother, go down to the court and decide who is filing the claim. Also, when it comes time to distribute the money, make sure that everybody who, under Florida law, can get this money has consented. We're not going to get into family arguments about the distribution of the money. Work it out. Work it out. If you can work it out, fine. We will distribute the money to the personal representative consistent with the plan. I get X, my sister gets Y, my husband gets D, whatever, fine. But work it out. Don't come to us to work it out. We can't work it out. And if you can't work it out so that everybody is satisfied with the distribution, we're going to take the money under the protocol and put it in the court. We'll go down to court and fight it out. Ridiculous. We can't get in the middle of this. Our job, Alex and the committee has made it very clear. Our job, get the money out and get it out fast with a minimum of controversy. So, when you come to me in September, why haven't I got my money? I'll tell you why. Don't blame me. Don't blame Camille. Don't blame Mai. Why haven't you worked out the distribution of the money? Why are you blaming us because the family is fighting over this? I hope not. Now, you know, with the physically injured and those who are trapped in the building, the nightclub, but thank God they survived, no problem. They're going to file their own claim. It is the 49 who died, you see, where the family has to file. We've seen it in all of these 9/11, Boston Marathon, Virginia Tech. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes it's not. And the burden is on you and your family members to work it out, because otherwise we will not distribute that money. For those who were physically injured and were hospitalized, I already mentioned, don't send medical records. Back injury, brain injury, shot in the foot, shot in the arm, not interested. Unnecessary. Too much delay gathering medical records. All we need for the physically injured who were hospitalized or received emergency treatment, just fill out the claim form and attach to the claim form a letter on the letterhead of the hospital. The claimant was admitted on such and such a date with the gunshot wound from the nightclub, and was admitted and was released on Y date. That's it. That's all we need. We will then look at that letter, see how long the hospitalization and the amount of money that is represented in the protocol. That's what you get. You don't have to go to all the trouble of gathering medical records. We just want a letter from the hospital. Tells the information. Quick. So the money can go out. Also, if you are one of the victims of this tragedy that escaped but were trapped in the nightclub, but thank God you didn't suffer a physical injury, but you were hiding, make sure you attach to your claim form corroboration, proof that you were there that night in the form of a law enforcement record. Now, we'll help on that. We'll have the list. Right, Camille? I'm sorry? Just mention it in the claim form. You don't have to attach anything. Camille says, we'll know from law enforcement authorities who was there. So with those who weren't injured but were trapped in the nightclub, fill out the form, say that you were trapped in the nightclub. We'll be able to verify that. Jeff's also nodding. Good. Good. Now, this will sound a little bit crass, but it's important that you know this. Is the money that you receive taxable? Do you have to pay taxes with this money? Don't ask me. I'm not a tax lawyer. You better check with your own tax advisor as to what she says or he says. We're not giving out tax advice. So if you want to know whether this money is taxable, go to your tax advisor or your accountant and find out. We're not representing anything like that. Finally, before we take questions, a couple of other points. When this program distributes this money, Alex and the board have insisted wisely there will be a full, independent audit of every dime. There will be a full audit by an independent auditor. Here's how much money came in. Here's how much money went out. There were no overhead expenses, so signed by the auditor. There will be a public audit report available to show exactly how every dime was spent to help the victims. That's it. That is a brief summary. And before I take questions, let me remind everybody, all I've done in the last 20 minutes is highlight the draft protocol. The draft protocol has been available. Everybody here should have read it. It's available up back today. Let us know very quickly in the next few days, because it's been out there for, 2 weeks. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you like about it or don't like about it. The board, the administrator, our team, all very interested in what you think. Because none of what I have said today is done. It's just what we're thinking of. We may change some of it. We don't know yet. But nobody should say that they weren't provided a full opportunity to let us know what you think. Now, for the next hour, questions from the audience. Also, tell your friends we are coming back here tonight at 6:30 to do it all over again. Why? Because we've learned over the years there are some people in this audience, who may want to return for a second time and listen again. There are also people who have to work during the day and aren't available during the day because they're working. We want to give them an opportunity to come back after work hours at 6:30 to hear this message. I want to close by speaking for Camille and Mai and Jeff and the whole team. Every time we do one of these compensation programs, it is a horror. We do all too many of these. We don't want to do these anymore. We pick up a newspaper and we read about some tragedy. And Camille and I look at each other, please, we don't want to get a telephone call from a mayor or a governor or the President of the United States. And when we do what most people in this room would do. We serve without compensation, without even expecting reimbursement from traveling here from Washington. We'll pay our own expenses. It's that important. We are here to serve the community because we've been asked to do so. And like most Americans, we step up when asked. Okay. We now, wait a minute. Oh. The video, Camille just told me, the video of this meeting is available on the website. So if you want to go home after this meeting and review it, the video of this meeting is also available online through the website. oneorlando.org, nationalcompassionfund.org. You can observe the video, and that will help your memory as to what I've said here today. And with that, I think, Mai, anything else? Jeff? Camille? We have 4 people with microphones. Now remember, if you don't want to be on the video, or if you don't want the press to be picking up on this with their camera, just at the outset, when you get the mic, say, I prefer confidentiality, and it'll just be in this room. So let's begin the questions. Now, I have one suggestion about questions. Don't ask a question about your own personal circumstances. You'll have an opportunity to do that with us privately. Don't take up valuable time in a public meeting by explaining how your third aunt, blum, blum, blum. If you have important policy questions about the draft protocol, that's really what we want to hear about in the next hour. Now, I want to start off, before we take all the questions, or as many as we can between now and 2 o'clock. I think somewhere here is a good friend of mine and the program. Where is Anita Bush? Anita Bush suffered horrible tragedy, and has been one of the most active proponents of compensation going to victims. She has been sort of my gadfly. Every time I make a mistake, she reminds me about the mistake I made. She is extremely knowledgeable. Now, Anita, we only have a limited amount of time, but I wanted to pay tribute by asking you if you have any question or opening comment before we throw it open. Can we have the mic for Anita right here? Here it is, Anita, right here. Anita Bush from Aurora, Colorado.
Yeah, come up with me. Oh, no, that's all right. Thank you, Ken. We flew in cross country last night to be here. My name is Anita Bush, as you've heard. My cousin Michaela was killed in the Aurora Theater along with 11 others, and 70 injured and hundreds impacted inside the theater. This is Bob Weiss. He flew in from Los Angeles, Santa Barbara. His daughter Veronica was killed in the mass shooting in Santa Barbara. This is Jennifer Longden. She flew in from Phoenix to be here today. And Jennifer and her fiance, David, were shot in 2004 in Phoenix, and she lives with a spinal cord injury. First of all, we wanted to say we're very sorry for the agony that everybody is suffering, for all the trauma and the devastation. We, unfortunately, can relate all too well for what you have been through and what you are continuing to go through. Please know that you're not alone. We are here with you and for you. We will be afterwards over to the left in the survivor room for any questions that you might have, or if you want to talk or just need a hug. We know what it's like. After the shooting at the nightclub, our families from all over this country, parents and families of the deceased and the wounded and those who survived, from 9/11, Columbine, Virginia Tech, Northern Illinois University, Tucson, Aurora, Oak Creek Sikh Temple, Newtown, Alturas, California, Santa Barbara, and Roseburg, and now San Bernardino families have joined us. Behind the scenes, we swung into action to protect you, our Orlando family. We needed to make sure that what happened to all of us over 17 years, when we were at our most vulnerable, did not happen to you. And what we mean by that is that when donations were collected from around the world, it never made it directly to the victims and the families, or we had to fight to try to get it to people who were injured and in wheelchairs and with head injuries and those who survived. We asked the National Center for Victims of Crime to start the National Compassion Fund, all of us, to make sure that 100% of every penny donated would go directly to you, not to nonprofits, not to overhead, not to the city, not to salaries, but to where donors intended it to go, to you. Without Nadine Smith and others at Equality Florida who started the GoFundMe account, I'm sure you all remember that, started up right away, what we suffered would have been repeated here in Orlando. Equality Florida wanted to make sure that 100% of every dime collected was going to you. They contacted the National Center's Jeff Dion and Jeff and Mai Fernandez and the board at the National Center for Victims of Crime agreed to open a National Compassion Fund for Orlando. We appreciate you doing so much, you have no idea. After that, our parents and families of those murdered, physically wounded, and those who survived. Sorry, I had to write this down. Those who survived from the shooting from Aurora, Virginia Tech, Northern Illinois University, Oak Creek Sikh Temple, Santa Barbara, and Newtown flew down here to Orlando to meet not only with the press but with city officials, asking all to follow the lead of the National Compassion Fund. And we applaud the mayor and his office and his staff who quickly agreed to change the mission statement of One Orlando so that 100% of the donations would go to you instead of nonprofits. This process that you've heard about from Ken is pure intentioned. It's fully transparent. And we are very, very thankful that it exists for you. We pray that one day very soon, that the National Compassion Fund, the only victim-based fund that we know about in this country, is implemented automatically after a mass tragedy as part of a city and state's emergency response, so victims are put first, and donor intent from generous Americans and all over the world, from people who want to help victims, that intent is fully realized, and we end the re-victimization of those who suffer most. Victims of gun violence, take care of each other. We fight for each other because we are one family. And finally, we wanted to thank Ken, whose intentions we fully trust. Families across the country are truly, truly grateful for you, Ken. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you. You want to say something? Very quick.
I'll come up. It'll be good very quickly. I only have about a few words. Here's my notes. It's a real honor to be here among you. I've been down the road through the journey. I'm in the journey just a little further down the road than you. It's a lifetime journey. To the parents, as a parent myself, welcome to the club that no one wants to be a member of. There's some really good people here. One of those people told me that, and I remembered this, I wanted to share it with you. One of the tough things about particularly being a parent, when a person loses their parents, they lose a big part of their past. When a parent loses a child, they lose their future, a big part of it. It's going to be tough. It's going to go on. I'm going to be here after the meeting, after Ken's finished up with the questions. I would very much like to meet any and all of you, especially other parents. UC Santa Barbara, 7 were killed, 7 students, 14 people seriously injured. The killer used knives, he ran over people with his car, and he shot and killed 6 people before killing himself. Donations came flying in, not at the level you're accustomed to, but a couple million. We survivors got 0. So far, 2 years into this, It's cost my family $250,000. So what Ken and the organization is doing here is very important, because there are vultures out there who know how to swoop in and take money that they don't deserve. They do it for a living. They rip people like us off. Just one final note related to money. I suffer from PTSD. It's very emotional for me to be here. More so than I expected. I'll try to keep it together. I only have about 30 more seconds to talk. If you have something like PTSD, if you are unable, like me, to work, I haven't worked in a year, I may never work again. Another source of support, which I didn't learn about until just a month ago, is disability from the Social Security. If you are unable to work because how you were affected, PTSD is my situation, go to the Social Security Department and apply for disability. For my family, it will be about $25,000 a year, but that's a lot of money considering we didn't get a dime from the millions that were raised up in Santa Barbara. And again, thank you. I hope to meet you and hug you.
Just quickly, please. We have limited time.
So unfortunately, you've all joined our family, and it grows by 321 people every single day. What I want you to know is there's going to come a day when you realize you haven't cried in the last 24 hours, and that's going to make you cry. And there's going to come a time when you can't remember the last night you woke up screaming. It will happen, I promise. You just got to get through this 1 minute at a time, 1 page at a time of these reams and reams and reams of paper that are coming at you. I can't tell you it gets better, but it does get easier to manage. And you now have family here for you. And I hope you'll take advantage of that. And real quick, further to Bob, you have a Center for Independent Living here, and all of you who are now disabled as a result of this shooting need to get to know about them. And I hope you'll come and talk to us after this. Thank you.
Thank you all. Questions, but 2 other comments that have been slipped to me. If you have a question and you don't want to be videoed, just mention and we shut off the camera. Audio, you will be heard on the tape. So I want to make that distinction. You won't be pictured, but your voice, if you don't want to identify yourself, by all means don't give us your name and then no one will know. But the audio will be picked up. Secondly, I've been asked to let everybody know that at the end of this meeting, there are bilingual counselors. They're wearing light blue shirts at the back of the hall, and they're available to provide any type of counseling here today or afterwards. They're at the back against the curtain walls, but I wanted to mention that as well. And now we throw it open. Brief questions about the protocol. Right there, a lady right there. Wait, we got to get her a mic. No, that's okay. Here.
That's okay. I do not wish to be videotaped.
Okay.
Just wanted to ask, because is Orlando One and Victims Compensation working together?
Yes. My understanding is that One Orlando, Jeff, you want to come up and explain? The funds will merge. Go ahead. Jeff Dion of the National Center.
many of you received crime victim compensation, which comes from the state of Florida through the Attorney General's office. That is separate from this. The National Compassion Fund, One Orlando, and Equality Florida are all working together. Whether you got money from crime victim compensation, from medical bills or mental health counseling, doesn't matter. You can still get this. We talk to each other, but they're not related.
In the letter that she received about the receiving, being eligible, there's a part that says that if she receives any other funds, then she has to repay for the victim's comp. How does that work?
We are working with the Attorney General's office. The basis of what the basis of what we're compensating for is the horrible experience they went through. We don't pay people money based on their medical bills. We don't pay people money based on their lost wages. That's what crime victim compensation does. Crime victim compensation does not pay you any money for your trauma or what people call pain and suffering. We like to say that we put this fund together to pay those types of damages because that's stuff that is not funded through other sources. And we're working with the Attorney General's office to try and help them recognize that there's a distinction and they shouldn't count this as money which would require a lien on those funds to have to pay that back. But we'll get a formal answer from the Attorney General's office, but we're working to provide them that information so they can make that decision.
Will we receive a letter afterwards?
Yeah,
clearing
but it would
that
come
up?
from the Attorney General's office, and we're going to work with them for that to happen. But they're the ones who make that decision. But we're trying to work with them to give them all the information so that they don't have to take a lien.
Okay. Thank you.
Let me add to your question that answer. Under this draft protocol, when we decide, One Orlando, how much money you will receive, we will not offset any other funds that you received. So if a decision is made that you will get, I'm making this up, you will get $100,000. You will get $100,000. We will not ask you, do you have life insurance? Did you get money from the state of Florida? Did you get Social Security money? Did you receive workers' compensation money for your injury? Not interested. The amount of money that we determine you will receive, you get it all. And we will not offset by other funds that you may have received.
I understand you won't, but I just want to make it clear, and there's a lot going on, and like you said earlier, we're probably talking and we hear here, but there's so many things going in our heads that we'll forget later on, But I just want to make it clear, victims fund compensation, because they're paying medical bills, but with what they said in that letter at the bottom, it scared me, because then if we get anything here, we have to pay them back. Once you get that solved, then they won't claim anything that we have to pay them. That's
the argument. I'm just telling you that at the end of the day, the state of Florida will do whatever it's going to do.
Yeah.
I'm telling you that any money that is distributed with the authority of this board, with me as the administrator, there will be no deductions for any other source of money. Now, you heard Jeff, whether or not at the end of the day the state of Florida won't ask for it, I've got enough challenges. I'm just telling you, ma'am, you're going to get a check, assuming you're eligible, etc. You're going to get a check from this fund, total. The amount, that's it. We're not, the application doesn't even ask you if you've got other money. We don't care. You're getting it all.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Sorry. Thank you. First of all, on behalf of all the family victims, I would like to say thank you to One Orlando Fund, to Mr. Ken and the team and the visitors from Phoenix and other states. It's very, very important for us. And welcome to Orlando. I have two questions. Number one, the victims that went to a hospital, but they might have to go for treatment for the rest of their lives, versus the one that spent X amount of time in the hospital, but they're okay now. Is there going to be any difference between those two?
No.
Okay.
You see, we have to get this money out fast. People need this money. We can't predict the future, whether someone will need another week or another month or 10 years. We have to make, in the draft protocol at least, we have to make a decision based on what happened before, not what might happen later. And so we will not, in the draft protocol, make that distinction.
First, thank you. My second question is about the funds. Is there going to be some kind of a public announcement about the deadline for people that wants to help with the One Orlando Fund? And if so, what will happen if we receive more funds after that deadline?
We will make an announcement as to the date when the money will be distributed. Now, you're right. There may be additional money that will come in after the deadline. What will we do with that money? Well, the board, the committee, will have to think about that. In the past, here is what we have done. If there's enough money that came in after the deadline, 5 million, 3 million, 7 million, we made a second distribution, a second check. You received X, and now you'll get another check for Y. If, however, there really isn't enough money, you don't want you don't want a program, it'll cost more to mail the check than it would be the amount of the check, then the committee will decide there's only $300,000 in total, and we're going to use that money for whatever the purpose might be. So we'll see. But in my experience, after the deadline, there isn't that much more money that comes in. People know there's the deadline, they get it in, and we distribute it. We'll see.
Mr. Feinberg on your left here. Mr. Feinberg.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Feinberg, and thank you, all of you who are part of One Orlando. My name is Joe Saunders. I'm part of the Human Rights Campaign, and we've been helping to respond to the Pulse shooting in a lot of ways. I have two questions for you. One is related specifically to the protocol and the criteria for who will be eligible. There's an assumption in the fourth criteria, the one related to those who were in the nightclub but weren't physically injured, that law enforcement captured their information and who they were before they left. And I feel like that assumption deserves a little bit more exploration, because I know how chaotic the first 15 and even 20 minutes was. And I could envision a moment where folks did not stay and were not captured by law enforcement and are still out there. So I have a question about that, and maybe you can talk about that. And the second question is related to actually getting people to register. It feels like we're about to start a clock, that a timer is about to start, and we'll have a deadline for folks to register. And it feels like there really needs to be a plan put in place. We have a list of people who we know were involved, but we actually have to reach out to them and get them to register. HRC is certainly willing to help do that. Can you talk a little bit about what that process will look like, and how, you know, the community and the city and government is all going to work together to get folks to register?
Two fabulous questions. Fabulous questions. First, Joe raises the question, well, what if there was somebody in the nightclub and in the chaos, the police didn't capture that name? One, I'm not sure that's right. They may not have captured that name in the first 20 minutes, But I think in the first 48 hours or week, they pretty much captured the name of everybody in that nightclub. But let's say Joe is right. It's a fair point. You see, we have to deal with the problem of proof. We have to have a way to determine how many people are going to be compensated. And if we just said in this draft protocol, just send in an application and tell us you were there, that's good enough. In my experience, we'd get 5,000 names. So I think there's got to be some requirement to limit the number of people eligible who never went to a hospital, who went home, shaken, but went home. Now we'll think about, Joe's point, well, is there another way? But frankly, in the draft protocol, a contemporary law enforcement designation that claimant was there because they took down the name that night or the next day or the next week as part of the investigation. Very important. Second question, why a prompt deadline? Why don't we give people more time to file their claim? Why are we talking about something like 30 days? Isn't that too short a period? Here's my answer. First, people are waiting for this money. This deadline is not something that we need the time. We'll process the claims when they come in. The problem is people are knocking on our door. When? When will we get this money? Second, I've found in 9/11, in Boston Marathon, in Virginia Tech, that when you have a deadline, people respond. They know that they've got to focus on this. And I find that one way to encourage people to come in quickly and at least get the application in, you may need a little more time, like Joe says, to process your claim with the probate court or who's the personal rep. That's fine. That may delay your money. But if you get the claim in a quick fashion, at least we have that claim in the door. See? And that encourages people. In 9/11, the 9/11 Compensation Fund, 2/3 of all the claims were filed in the last 90 days. And that program, by statute, lasted 33 months. And yet 2/3 of all the claims came in as the final date approached. So Joe's asked two good questions. Those are the answers, at least right now, in the draft protocol. Next question.
Y un anuncio que les queremos decir es que esta reunión se puede encontrar en la página de web, oneorlando.org. La van a también tener en español y también le van a dar la asistencia en cómo llenar las aplicaciones. Entonces pueden encontrar esto. Y aquí tenemos to the left, to the right.
Here's Camille just slipped me a note in response to Joe's second question. People can register now on the website. You don't have to wait for the claim form. We'll send you the form when the final protocol is determined, but people beginning now, you can register on the website to receive the claim form and the final protocol when it's available by mail. So you can begin today, at least getting us your name and you're on the list. Next question.
Actually, you kind of answered the question that I have, but...
I always worry when someone says you kind of answer.
Yeah. Welcome. First, to the visitors to Orlando. Thank you as well for doing this. And in regarding of the next of kin filing the claim, are we going to need a probate attorney to do this?
You can have one if you'd like. It may make it easier. That's up to you. It's not required.
Okay, so it's not required. That was my question. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi. In addition to what she just asked regarding the probate, in the draft protocol it states a representative. Do each representative have to go to court to be certified as the legal representative? Sorry.
I would urge that. Now, is it required? No. But I would urge that you can go down, I think in 30 minutes you could get a designation. It just helps us make sure that we're talking to the right person. We're talking about a substantial amount of money. And we're concerned that if you're not designated as the executor of the estate, of the personal representative. Now, Camille, does the person have to go to court and get that personal designation? Or can the person get the consent of everybody and file as the personal representative without objection? We prefer a court designation. If, this is important, we prefer, some of you already have it, we know that, you've already been designated by the probate court to be the personal representative of the deceased. If you don't want to go to that trouble, it's a burden. And everybody who's entitled to get the money agrees with the way that you're going to distribute it. And they all agree that you're the personal representative, and they consent. That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
And
Go ahead.
One more thing with that, because we have out of state. How does that work?
Get their signature.
Okay.
If there are relatives living in out of state or out of country, get that signature, because we don't want to, and you don't want us to distribute the money, and then somebody out of state comes back and says, I didn't agree to this, and then you're going to get sued. There's a lot of money here. So we have to take steps to make sure once we let the money get distributed, it's distributed in a way that maximizes the likelihood that you won't be sued for getting that money.
Yes, my question is, how you gonna difference from the probate and the next of kin?
The probate decides that. In other words, when you go to the probate court in Florida, the probate court will ask you want to be the personal representative, have the brothers and the sisters, have they agreed that you should be the personal representative, and they will allow you to become the personal representative. Come on up, Mike.
For those of you who need probate attorneys, the Orlando Victim Assistance Center can help you get a probate attorney. So you would go through them, and they can help you with that process. I just wanted to have everybody have that information. I'm sorry, your name is? Myra. Just informed me that she received help and that others can do so also.
There are flyers up front too.
Oh, there's flyers up front too, where you can get probate assistance.
For the United Assistance Center, there's flyers.
Oh, there's for the United Assistance Center.
What about the person that doesn't have a next of kin, due to the fact that it's a different event that anyone else have? Like we, gay and lesbians, Florida at that time wasn't, that we didn't have no rights, okay? So what about the person that have just the partner, wasn't married, but then doesn't have a family? How are they gonna prove that it was part of their life to be able to get the marriage?
That partner goes to the probate court and says to the probate court, I'm the partner of the victim. I should be the personal representative, and I don't know, he may or she may say, and I should receive the funds. And the probate court will say, okay, notify the parents or the siblings. Do they fight? Do they agree? Do they disagree? If they agree, done. We will honor the request. If they disagree, probate court will have to decide. We can't decide that. We can't decide that. This could get complicated. It depends on whether or not, under Florida law, everybody agrees as to how who the personal representative should be filing the claim and how the money should be distributed. And if everybody agrees, it's simple. And most of the time, everybody does agree, but not always. And if there's going to be a fight, it isn't going to be a fight with me or with Camille or Mai or Jeff. It's going to be a fight in the probate court. We're holding the money. We'll help you work it out. We will try and work it out. But if there's arguments, we're not the source of resolution there.
Hi, I want to thank you guys so much for being here, Mr. Feinberg, and thank you to the One Orlando
Where are
board.
you?
It's been amazing.
Oh.
Sorry, right here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm Robin with Pulse of Orlando, the nonprofit that's been supplying funds to fill the gap. Not a lot. We have a maximum of $750 that we've been giving to try to help, people from losing their apartments and their cars. So I came here with one question, and now I have three, so I apologize in advance. But they're all about the protocol. I think there's a bit of a misconception about how many people have actually gone to law enforcement. As part of, on the board for Pulse of Orlando, I've met with at least 60 victims, which include, of course, those that were there, those in the hospital. A lot of people contacted us that had never gone to police or reached out to anyone. They actually ran from the club, got in their cars, left. Some of them didn't leave their homes and apartments for 1 or 2 weeks. So we've encouraged, and part of our fund is that you must register with the Orlando United Assistance Center. So one of the questions I have is that we were under the impression that if we took them to the Orlando United Assistance Center, they spoke with the FBI, that counted. And so I just want to make sure, one, that that's part of your protocol, and maybe not OPD that night, because they may not have spoken to them. They may have come afterwards, and we make sure we're walking everyone through the Orlando United Assistance Center. We have a list. We go there, we compare, we make sure they're registered, we walk them through. So I just want to make sure by them going to the FBI, first question, through the OUAC, that does count as a record.
Yes. Second question.
Okay, great. Second question is, we also found there were people who were in the hallway, for one example, were squished in the hallway. One girl reached down to take her heels off. She had a torn shoulder injury. She didn't go that night. She ran to her car. She went home. The next morning, she went to her orthopedic doctor. She's going to have surgery. She wouldn't be on that list of people that were hospitalized. However, she's going to have a long-term injury. How are those exceptions going to be handled?
We say within 24 hours you had to. Now, you didn't have to go within 24 hours to the emergency room or within 24 hours to your doctor, who will confirm that you received treatment.
Any medical
that person is covered.
Terrific.
In other words, that person the next morning received medical treatment from her own doctor.
Correct.
And that own doctor's records will prove within 24 hours eligible.
Wonderful.
Under the protocol.
Thank you. And then lastly, I heard multiple times the word hiding and trapped. I'm former law enforcement, retired crime scene investigator, and some of the stories that I've heard have kept me up at night more than some of the crime scenes and the things that I've seen. There are people who may not be in a wheelchair but are absolutely mentally crippled by this. And I just want to be clear, some of them ran out while their partners were killed, while their friends were killed. They may have run out from the patio but still had people falling on them, or they maybe weren't trapped. So can you maybe define hiding and trapped? Is that...
No, those are my words. Were they in the building? Were they in the nightclub?
I just wanted to clarify. Thank you so much.
Okay. By the way, this lady asked a very good question. Here is a phone number if you need probate legal help. Take this down. Orlando United Assistance Center, 407-500-HOPE. 407-500-4673. Or cityoforlando.net/hope. cityoforlando.net/hope. Those folks, Mai was talking about this, those folks are ready to provide you some legal assistance in figuring out probate and how to file.
Okay, question here. Oh.
Good. That's the way to get it.
Hello. Okay.
Next question.
Hi.
Where are
Hola,
you?
prefiero hablar en español y sé que muchos de la comunidad no llegaron a asegurar un equipo para traducción y quería presentarme. Me llamo Zoe Colón, estoy con Somos Orlando. Quiero que sepan que hay recursos aquí con la ciudad de Orlando que tienen una manera de registrarse, de verificar el caso, tienen asistencia legal y todo lo que se va a necesitar para su caso, pero también que estamos nosotros, Somos Orlando, tengo folletos, voy a estar atrás si necesitan asistencia en español o a manos de profesionales que pueden abogar por su caso, todo gratis. Entonces, solo quiero asegurar, como no todo el mundo tenía el equipo, ¿verdad?, para la traducción, que se sientan cómodos, porque acá todo lo van a hacer en inglés, va a estar en el sitio de web de la ciudad y ahí va a estar todo en español y en inglés, pero también estamos acá para ayudar, todo gratis. Tenemos también consejería para salud mental, grupos de apoyo y manejo de casos, asistencia legal, todo en español y en inglés y todo con el conocimiento que tenemos de lo que está ofreciendo la ciudad. Entonces, a las órdenes, el número es 407-382-9079 y vamos a tener folletos allá atrás si necesitan. Muchas gracias.
To the right. And just so everyone knows, you are able to speak in Spanish if you so choose to. We have professional translators in the back that will be able to translate that appropriately. If you do not have a headpiece and you want to come back to the second town hall, make sure that you grab one when you first get here. Queremos asegurarles a todos que tenemos alguien profesional atrás interpretando y también trasladando. Entonces pueden hacer la pregunta en español. Aquí está.
Hi. My question is...
Where are you?
Right
On
here.
your right.
Oh.
Wheelchair. I have a female friend who was not able to make it today, and she is a survivor. She was in the bathroom with us, and she helped save my life as well as a few other people. And I'm not sure. She's been laying low. She doesn't want to do media, none of that stuff. I'm not sure if she spoke to any law enforcement, but I know she spoke to FBI because her car was one of the cars that was held hostage in the parking lot for the week, like a lot of other people's. So would they have her name? Would she be on file already, or does she need to register?
Sounds to me like she's on the file.
Okay.
We'll take a look, but if she spoke to the FBI and the FBI verifies that, that should be sufficient. We'll see. We'll have to look at it. But
All
I hear what you're saying.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Hello, my question was
Wait a
basically
minute.
to find out if you've already filed, is there a way to find out where you are in terms of how far you've gotten?
Yes. First of all, you haven't filed. Have you filed already a name?
Yes, I have.
Good. Great. Great. We'll send you the application to fill out and the final protocol, so you'll see the final rules. And then you'll fill out the application and send it back. Now, if the application if there are some problems with it, if it's deficient, if we have some questions, we'll reach out to you. Once you've filed, don't worry that it's just sitting somewhere. We'll evaluate it, we'll look at it, and if we need verification or other questions, we'll get back to you. Don't worry about that.
Question on your left, Mr. Feinberg. Mr. Feinberg, on your left.
Thank you. Will the final distribution protocol indicate specifically that this is a non-economic loss, similar to the 9/11 compensation?
I don't know the answer to that question yet. My gut answer is it won't. It will simply be a distribution, and the claimant will make the case or will say what it wants. But you're the third person now that's asked me that question. Mai was the first, or Jeff. So we'll take that under advisement because it may have tax consequences and it may have offset consequences, which is what Jeff was talking about. So we'll take a look at that between now and the final protocol. We've never made that distinction other than the 9/11 fund. We made it in the 9/11 fund because the statute passed by Congress required it. But we'll take a look at it.
Front left.
I do not want to be videotaped. I have a concern. From what I understand, there are 4 categories.
Correct.
Right? So my concern is with category 2 and 3. How do you categorize a person that's been physically injured, was held for the 3 hours, a hostage, was also an outpatient, the emergency outpatient sent home the very few hours later, and still has bullet fragments? How do you categorize that into 2 and 3? And my second question is, will we know the amount that's distributed before the final protocol is decided?
All right. Now, you have asked 2 good questions. Very good. Good questions. First, bullet fragments, bullet wounds, broken bones, not really relevant in this draft protocol. What's relevant is, was the victim sent home from the emergency room or not? That's all this protocol is interested in. If the person was admitted to the hospital overnight, or 2 nights, or 5 nights, or 30 nights, that's one category. Different amounts in that category based on how long they stayed in the hospital. If they went home for any reason, bandage, splint, whatever, they went home, they were not admitted. Third category. Doesn't matter the nature of the wound. Third category. We do not want medical records. We're using hospitalization as the test, not the nature of the injury. And that's the answer to that question. Now, a hostage, again, if somebody was not physically wounded. All right, now you're asking another question. What do we do if somebody was both a hostage, category 4, and physically wounded, category 2 or 3? The way the draft protocol will treat that is whichever provides the greatest compensation. If you get more for being hospitalized 2 days than being a hostage, or if you get more from receiving emergency treatment than being a hostage, then you'd get the higher amount. It may be, this is a point Camille's raised, it may be that whether you were a hostage or received emergency treatment, you should get the same. We haven't decided that yet, but that's a point that's been made. Also, you ask, will you know the amounts? You'll know the amounts in the final protocol. We'll put that in the final protocol. When you file your claim, you'll know the amounts. Camille says we may want to wait a few extra weeks before we announce the amounts because we want to maximize the amount of money that's still coming in to increase the award. So we may delay, but if we delay it, it'll be just a matter of weeks, of days. Good questions.
Back here in the back, Mr. Feinberg.
Hello. Will immigration status affect disbursement at all?
Nope. Next question.
Yep. On your left.
Paul Zenowitz, I represent a couple of the victims. Just real fast, why would the independent audit happen a month after funds are distributed?
I don't know. When do you want the independent audit done? I mean, I'm all ears on that. We thought we'd want an independent audit when we know the maximum amount, and we don't want to hold up distribution waiting for an independent audit. So let's say there's $25 million at the end of the day that we're distributing. We don't want to hold that money for a month or more while there's an independent audit done. In order to delay payment, we want to get the payments out the door.
But what if there's a problem with the distribution?
Then everybody will know that there's a problem with distribution. Then everybody will know about it.
Before an independent audit was done?
No, after the independent audit is done. You have to make a choice. I mean, I'm all ears on this. You tell me. Do you want an independent audit done when you've got a maximum amount of money and the money has not yet gone out the door, delaying the distribution while you do that audit? Or do you want an independent audit done after the money's been distributed, showing that the money was distributed in the following ways? That's a policy choice.
Well, I sincerely hope it is distributed in the proper ways, but...
Yeah, I understand that.
I just want to make sure that it does get distributed in the proper ways.
Good enough. Fair enough. Second. Oh, that's it? Next question.
Just to get this straight, if a family make a consensus, we have one person that would be the power of attorney, or without a probate, and you just receive one claim for one victim, you will understand that that is the person that will receive the funds.
You're correct.
Thank you.
If you're the personal, I'm using you as an example. If you're the personal representative and everybody agrees that you're the personal representative in the family who would be entitled under Florida law to get the funds distributed, fine. Also, remember that they're consenting not only to you being the personal representative, but that the money is being distributed in a manner, we agree, fine.
Back in there, you're right.
My question is, when you say hospitalization, does that include, over here, to the other side?
On your right.
On your right.
On your right.
Right here. When you say hospitalization, does that include mental health hospitalization?
Does it include mental health?
Yeah, I guess it includes mental health hospitalization, but I'm trying to figure out, I doubt that will make much difference because, let me tell you why under the draft protocol. The reason that won't make much difference is that under the categories that now exist, anybody who's not physically injured, but it has mental injury due to being in the nightclub gets a flat amount regardless of hospitalization under the draft. So it won't matter. You're raising an interesting issue. Let's say 2 people were in the nightclub, weren't injured physically, but were hospitalized mentally. Under the draft protocol, they get the same amount, whether one was hospitalized for 30 days and one wasn't hospitalized at all. You're saying, should we make a similar distinction when it comes to mental injury because they were in the location of the nightclub based on hospitalization? It's an interesting concept. Right now, the answer in the draft protocol is no. If you were in the location, even though you weren't physically injured, we assume you're going to get X. And that's it. The problem with giving people differing amounts for hospitalization is, will we get the necessary hospital evidence that a person's in the hospital for 24 days because of mental disability, another person 4 days? I'm not sure we have enough money, and I'm not sure it makes a whole lot of sense, but you raise an interesting question. By the way, I just received some very good news from the probate court. We have been told that anybody who needs probate court assistance to be designated the personal representative, if you go to the probate court here in Orange County, the appointment will be made on a fast track. I told you this, but now I have verification. I think, based on experience, if somebody wants to go get designated a personal representative, you can do it within an hour if you go down there. They'll fast track it for you. And this sort of proves it. Any other questions? Now, before we adjourn, a few final points. First of all, fabulous questions. Excellent.
One more
question.
One more question in the
Last
back.
question. Where?
One more.
In the back.
All right, you get the last word.
I'm sorry, and it has to do with the probate matter. I guess my question is the money going to be distributed to the estate or to the heirs? Because that would be the distinction for me in the matter if we have to get the court involved.
It's going to be distributed to the estate, to the personal representative who has the consent of the heirs as to how the money will be distributed. Camille. To the personal representative or to the various people? Here's the answer. As long as all of the heirs agree as to how the money will be distributed. Remember, it's the personal representative who's filed the claim. As long as all of the heirs or the distributees agree, we will either send the check to the personal representative of the estate for further distribution, or at the personal representative's request, we'll send separate checks to each of the heirs. Does that help you? Does that answer your question?
When I read the protocol initially, and I saw that a personal representative was being requested, I assumed that it would go to the estate and the probate court would have to get involved.
No. If the probate court has designated the personal representative as the representative of the estate, we'll send the check either directly to the personal representative for distribution pursuant to the consent of each of the heirs. You don't have to go back. You will not have to go back. Ladies and gentlemen, first, a reminder before we adjourn. There is a second town hall meeting at 6:30 here. Come back again if you'd like. We will repeat the process, the explanation, and we'll invite questions from the audience. That's first. Second, remember, you can also send in your questions. You've got the email address. If you don't want to speak now, but in the next couple of days you have additional thoughts, send them to us. In Spanish or English, we will consider them, and the committee will consider them. Third, remember once again, this protocol, which you can get today, it's here, it's only a draft. We've heard some very interesting comments from people, and we'll take them into account as to whether or not we will recommend to the committee changes in the protocol. But we will be, in the next couple of weeks at the most, finalizing the protocol. And that will be the governing document as we move forward. But, as Camille pointed out, you can file today, you can register today to participate in the program. Go to the website, register, we'll send you the final protocol, we'll send you the claim form to begin to fill out, and we will be available to help you. Here's my final point. Camille and I, and Mai and Jeff and the whole team, we would gladly rather not be here today. But we have a job, we've been asked to do it. A tremendous personal word of thanks to Alex and his committee and the mayor and Mayan Downs, who's not here today, but they have been fabulous in working with us to get us this far. We want to make sure that everybody understands this transparent process. These are tough questions. And here's my final point. If anybody in this audience wants to speak to the press, you're not required to do so. No one's asking you to meet with the media. But if anybody wants to meet with the press, there is a media briefing room right outside here. And you are invited to go out the door, turn left again, and people will direct you to the media briefing room. It's not required. You don't have to go, but if you want to go, there's a great deal of press interest in this, feel free to do so. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Camille and Mai and Nadine and Jeff and everybody, April, and everybody who's been involved in this process, thank you, and we will try and do our best.
Just one quick announcement. Several people have come up to me asking about all different kinds of assistance. I wanted to remind people to please go to the Orlando United Assistance Center. There are pamphlets in the back. They look like this. And they can help you with legal assistance if you're having problems making rent, all counseling, and I just want to remind people about that. Ha habido mucha gente que me ha preguntado por asistencia. En el Orlando Assistance Center están dando todo tipo de asistencia legal, ayuda si tienen que pagar la renta, para recibir consejos. Atrás hay papeles que lucen así y en donde pueden conseguir la asistencia que necesitan. Muchas gracias.